Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to point out that as a board's expert, I haven't been sworn yet.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maltz. Mr. Salzman.
Mr. Maltz, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth of the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and business address, please.
Harold K. Malt, from the LTD. Firm located at 19 Porter Road in West Orange, New Jersey.
I don't think we're going to get to you, Mr. Maltz, but I'm glad you're all sworn in now.
Okay.
Mr. Kelly, if you could please put yourself on the record and then let us know what witnesses will be coming tonight.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Good evening again, folks. Larry County, on behalf of the applicant, Interstate Outdoor Advertising LP, who is a prospective lessee of a portion of the property located at 1775 Route 10 East. For the record, block 115, lot 1.02. Ultimately, Mr. Chairman, members, we're going to have a deck of 4 witnesses that you'll hear throughout the course of the application. You'll hear, in this order, civil engineering testimony, and you hear operational testimony. We'll then move into traffic testimony, and then we'll finish up with planning. I think this evening, the natural stopping point, based upon the cadence we at least anticipate, will probably take us through the first 2 of those witnesses. Through civil, there's not going to be all that much to discuss there with the limited development of this billboard, and then we'll go through operations, which we'll get into the granular details as to how Interstate cites a location, how they properly identify it, how they obtain their DOT permit and the like. That might be a natural stopping point at that point, we think, Mr. Chairman. We'll probably get us close to 10:30.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so please tell us about your application, describe the variances you were requesting, and of course your testimony as why relief should be granted.
Certainly. Very briefly, just by way of introduction, we're at the Board of Adjustment here because we triggered D relief. There was use variance relief. There's D1 relief for the billboard, which is the off-premises advertising. What's proposed is a digital billboard, 49 feet top height, that is not permitted in the zone. We're in the OB zoning district, so the off-premises advertising relief triggers D1 relief. The planning report, and we agree, tends to add another aspect of D relief, which is the D6 height relief, which is exceeding by 10 feet or 10%, which this does. It's 49 feet top height proposed, 35 is permitted. There's also bulk variance relief for setbacks not being conforming under the proposed conditions. The billboard setback would be required to meet the principal structure setback of 75 feet for the front yard. 6 is proposed. The structure setback to the side yard is likewise 75 feet, 54.7 is proposed. There's also existing non-conforming conditions that are not being exacerbated. Those relate to the setback of the principal structure, the Harley Davidson commercial building on the property. It's about 49.9 feet to Route 10, 11.5 feet or so to Candlewood Drive. Those are existing conditions proposed to remain. Those are no change conditions. But between the relief, we've got items of D relief and C relief. You'll hear our planner testify at length. Ultimately, Mr. McDonough will be up here at a subsequent public meeting justifying those variances. Tonight, what we'd like to do is frame out for you folks what it is that you'll see if this were voted to be approved and developed in the field. So we're going to start with civil engineering to locate the billboard on the property. We're going to walk you through the site as to what's there today very briefly, where we're developing, which is a very limited implementation, and then move on to our operations so we can start showing you illustrations as to what you would see here by way of this digital billboard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tiago Olsen. You can see if you want. You don't have to. I came over here to be with my friends this time. The chairman told me I could, so I figured I'd hang out with you guys.
All right, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Tiago Duarte, D-U-A-R-T-E.
You're going to have to do that. Again.
Tiago, T-I-A-G-O, Duarte, D-U-A-R-T-E.
And your business address?
50 Park Place, Newark, New Jersey.
Tiago, for the benefit of the board, your background and experience in the field of civil engineering?
Sure. I'm a principal at Dynamic Engineering. Graduated Rutgers University in 2011 with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering. I've been practicing in the field of land development specifically for the last 11 years, working on a variety of projects, residential, commercial, industrial, and about 40, more than 40 at this point, billboard applications similar to what's before the board this evening.
Your license remain current and good standing in the field of civil engineering?
Yes, correct.
And you prepare the plans that are on file with the board that you're going to be testifying to this evening?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Any questions from board members regarding the qualifications? Any testified before land use boards in this area in the state?
Not for this board, but yes, multiple in the state.
Okay, thank you. Questions on Paul's? All right, we'll accept the witness as an expert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we heard my proffer to the board as to what brings us here this evening. I think your testimony is going to be somewhat limited, but if you wouldn't mind walking the board through the site and proposed improvements and any plan sheet that we show the board that's not on file, if we can identify it, and we'll sequentially mark them as exhibits.
Sure. And realize you're presenting to both members of the public and the board, so maybe pull back a little bit, make sure folks in the audience can see your easel.
Just to quickly orient the board and everyone to the site, I have four. What I have before you is the aerial map, which is sheet 2 of the site plans that were submitted with the application.
Sir, you're gonna have to speak by the microphone, or I can maybe move it over to you.
Hold the microphone over to the corner by you, and just boom your voice a bit, please.
How's that? Better? So to quickly orient everyone to the sign location, or site location, 1775 Route 10. Currently, the site's fully developed as a Harley Davidson dealership. It is located at the southeast intersection with Candlewood Drive, block 115, lot 1.02. Site in its current condition is fully developed, again, as a Harley Davidson dealership. There's a 15,200 square foot building on the site, associated off-street parking spaces, off-street circulation aisles, and walkways for the building. Site is located in the OB Office Business District, and basically, again, the site is fully developed. I'm switching here now to our site plan, which is sheet 3 of the application materials. So, as you just heard, what is being proposed this evening is a 14 by 48 billboard structure, consisting of 2 sign faces with a V spread of 30 feet in the rear. So you have one face oriented towards westbound traffic on Route 10 and one face oriented towards eastbound traffic on Route 10. The sign is located to the northeast of the existing building. As you just heard, it's got an overall height proposed of 49 feet. The steel structure is a steel structure. There's a center column which will come to grade and be located in an existing landscape pile just off the corner of the building. As for location, the sign is to be located 6 feet from the right-of-way. 75 feet is required in the OB zone. 6 feet is more appropriate for the use that's proposed. The intended audience, again, is anyone driving on Route 10. So as a function of that, we bring the sign close to the right-of-way line. So we have a, as mentioned, 6 foot setback to Route 10. As for side setback, we have 54.7 feet. Again, 75 feet is required, and that's more of a lot constraint than a location item. Overall height, again, is 49 feet, where that is a variance of the zone. Reason being for the height, there's a lot of obstructions on Route 10, namely to the building, where we're going to be 49 feet will be located above that building, so the sign face 14 by 48 each face. When you bring that down, we're about 5 foot overhang above the building. So bottom of the sign face will be clear from that top of roof by 5 feet. As for the digital aspect, which is unlike a traditional static billboard, which would use copy and fixed to the face of the billboard, this is a digital billboard, and the message is a changeable message. And how that happens is through these an LED screen. There's a 12 by 12 panel with diodes affixed, red, blue, and green, and when they illuminate in billions of combinations, they create whatever images is being displayed from the board. shows individual LED panels that get fixed to that steel structure, so it's all affixed and secured to the steel structure. The difference from, again, static is that it relies on sunlight, or usually you'd have uplighting or downlighting from external fixtures. LED sign face doesn't require that. The screen itself is what screens the image and illuminates to provide that display copy. One of the aspects of LED that's important to mention is the directionalized nature of it. The image comes out from the screen and is intended to really focus on that audience on Route 10. That's why, again, we have the piece spread to better
Let me
report.
interrupt for a moment, please. Mr. Cali, is his testimony pertinent to his license as a PE or better off on the ops side?
I think you might hear some redundancy and overlap with the operations testimony, Mr. Chairman, but I think there is some relevance here as to the structure that Mr. Bard is locating, identifying what you're gonna see and how, and as to illumination, I think, as well. So, we're gonna trend to it lightly here, I think, but you're gonna hear much more on the operational side.
Thank you. Sure.
Going right to, I guess, lighting and illumination, I'll switch over to our lighting exhibit. So that's the proposed lighting exhibit, sheet 2 of 2, again, previously submitted with the application. And basically what this, just to show, is the what this plan serves to show is to basically quantify the lighting element that can be anticipated from the sign faces. And basically we have the existing light levels in gray, in a grid underneath, and the billboard lighting levels that's measured from the center of the sign face, so approximately 38 feet above grade, overlaid in red on top. And basically what that shows is that the light levels associated with the image being displayed is, in general, below 1 foot candle. So we have circular rings, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, and at the worst case, at 100 feet from the sign face, we have 0.68 foot candles measured at that distance. And that's the greatest influence that the light levels will have. Going another 100 feet out, it immediately drops to 0.17. So you get a quick drop off in the light levels as you move further away from the sign face. However, in compared to the design standards of the ordinance, there is a design standard where the light levels not exceed 0.5 at the property line, and what's being proposed will slightly exceed that based on just the proximity of the sign face to the property lines. But it does, again, quickly diminish as you move beyond the sign face, and then by the time you're 300 feet away, you're less than a tenth of a foot candle difference from the ambient light level. So again, it's a quick reduction. Again, the sign isn't intended to be a luminaire, it isn't intended to light an area. It's simply a function of the sign face being on and providing a display image. Just to quickly, to give more reference on the brightness of the sign, these signs are set to variable levels. So daytime you have to overcome sunlight, ambient light levels during the day. So the light measure at that time is approximately 5,000 to 7,500 nits. Nits is a unit of measure, just how bright something is. At night, that gets throttled way down to about 3 to 4% of its overall power. So you're at nighttime, the brightness setting is 300 nits. Comparing that to, say, an iPhone 14, that's got a brightness range from 800 to 1200 nits, or a standard HD television, usually it's about 500 to 1000 nits. So by comparison, the brightness put out at night is much less than a typical cell phone. far as fail safes, there's also a light, a photo cell meter on the sign face. So if the sign is set to, say, 7,500 nits in the daytime, if it's an overcast day, if it's a cloudy day, there is a photo cell which automatically dims and reduces the output to compensate for that diminished daylight setting. And also that's how it adjusts at night. It's a constantly monitored system that makes sure that the output is in line with the settings that it's set at. And that 300 nits that's set for nighttime, that is an industry standard that's set forth by the Outdoor Advertising Agency of America. It's kind of the industry standard for signs similar to this. And just the one last thing is to compare that to a typical static sign. So the lumen output at 300 nits at night is by far, it's just over 1,000 lumens. Where if you compare that to a 400 watt metal halide or a 200 watt LED light bulb, those lumen outputs are about 24,000. So the total output really is less than a typical light fixture. And again, that's a function of the directionalized nature of the sign. All the light is going to the intended audience, where an uplight on a static billboard, you get some light going up, out, around. You get a halo effect around the sign, so it's more scattered, where LED is directionalized and focused output. Yeah, with that, I can answer any questions.
So, and Mr. Chairman, as you, I think, anticipated, you're going to hear more details on the hardware behind the signs and the billboard itself from our next witness as well. So, to the extent that questions go beyond Mr. Duarte's area of expertise, or maybe it's better handled by our next witness, we could always defer some of those questions that go beyond strict objective civil engineering at this point, if that makes sense. Maybe it's more efficient that way, given the hour of the night.
Done for the moment?
Yes.
All right. Questions for this witness and his testimony from our professionals? Yeah.
You mentioned the LED screens are 12 by 12, is that correct?
The LED modules, yes, 12 by 12.
Then why is the actual billboard 14 feet high?
It's comprised of these 12 by 12 panels.
What's your unit of measure when you say 12?
Sorry, 12 inch by 12 inch.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think you said 12 feet by 12 feet.
No, so yeah, each of the LED modules is about the size of a sheet of paper.
I misunderstood. On your sign detail, there's something below the sign, it's called a 3-foot apron. Can you describe that and what its function is?
Yes, so that is actually a requirement of the DOT, and the apron not only. I don't know what I do. Just for in our detail there. It's a DOT requirement. It screens the structure components beneath and behind, but also, and more importantly, it has the company logo affixed to it, and the DOT permit number will also be affixed to it, so that the intent is if you're driving on the road, someone will be able to identify that sign by the permit number and the operator.
Is that information lit too?
Yes, the backlit for the operator.
Now, regarding your proposed lighting plan, you have the originally existing lighting from the originally approved site plan, correct?
Correct.
Now, in terms of the billboard, you said you present the lighting intensities at 38 feet high?
Yes, it's measured from the center of the sign face. Yes.
Now, when you extend those measurements outward along Route 10 east and west, are you still measuring the lighting levels at 38 feet high or on the level of the pavement of the highway?
All the measurements in red are at that elevation. All the grayed out and the black numbers are at pavement.
Now, like you mentioned, I think you said you need a site plan design waiver because you exceed the 0.5-foot candles off the property line. Now, that measurement is taken either at the pavement or ground surface. So my question is, did you include the light impact from the billboard on the ground surface at the property line, in addition to the original existing light?
In this plan, no, because we took it from the worst case, which is at that elevated height. But that's something that we can provide, the additive nature of the light levels.
But there would be some lighting intensity produced by this billboard at the property line, at the ground level. Is that true?
Correct. I'll add that it is minimal in nature, having done pre and post lighting analysis for similar signs. When you take, a light meter and measure the ambient level and the sign on level, usually it's a 1/100th, a 1/10 of a foot candle difference, depending on your location. But we can provide a plan that shows that.
But with the property line so close, you're telling me you don't anticipate it being higher than a 1/10 of a foot candle?
As you get closer to the sign, it could be brighter, and we'll verify that. But yes, if you're beyond that 100-foot distance from the sign face, it'd be a 1/10, no more than a 1/10.
So your proposed lighting plan, just to be clear, does not present the lighting levels at the ground surface or pavement surface for both sources, the existing site lighting plus your proposed billboard. Is that correct?
Currently, yes, correct.
I think that information has to be
Right. So we
made
talked about
available
this.
to the board.
And Leon, that's in your June 21 report, right? That's item C1 that's been,
That is correct.
okay.
Yeah.
Right, so we talked about the importance of this during completeness review and agreed that we could cover it through testimony and drawings. It wasn't a completeness item. But I think we need to be ready to speak to that, provide calculations in advance of the next meeting, be ready to speak to it.
We'll provide calculations in a revised proposed lighting plan.
Yes.
Correct. Now, again, referring to my report, page 2, comment C3. This is one of the most critical elements of this application. You've had my letter for 4 months, and I'm just wondering if you've reached out to the DOT to address my comment C3. Everyone should take a minute to read C3. Very important comment.
So in case you remember the public here, let me read this. The plans show that the sign will extend into the 12-foot wide land reservation along Route 10 by about 6 feet. If this encroachment into the 12-foot wide land reservation jeopardizes the future widening of Route 10 East in any way, then I recommend that this sign be relocated. The NJDOT must go on the record regarding this issue, quote unquote. And Leon, where this comes from is that I've known this board for 19 years. Every time we've heard a case for planning or zoning along Route 10 East, we've asked for this reservation, right? So we're building that contiguous future.
At the least, we've asked for an easement or reservation. I don't know if you remember Aries Jewelers, we asked for, and they granted a straight-up right-of-way dedication to the Borough of Morris Plains for future Route 10 widening. So this issue has got to be addressed, and we need confirmation from the DOT.
Leon, the 12-foot wide land reservation, that's an existing reservation?
Yeah, that deed exists. It's not really clear on the plan, but that reservation of land was put there specifically to allow and actually promote the future widening of Route 10 eastbound. So again, if the DOT, we have to hear from the DOT, that billboard coming into that reservation, does that jeopardize widening of Route 10 in the future? We have to have a yes or no from the DOT.
That's a question to the witness, right? When is that coming?
Witness or the applicant's attorney.
So just to quickly touch on that, the applicant will address that they have been in talks with the DOT, but what I can add from a design perspective is that, so the center mount steel pole that will go into the landscape bed, that is located outside of that 12-foot, and the current proposal is for a 6-foot overhang into that 12-foot strip. The way that these signs are designed, that sign face in its entirety can be shifted back, so notwithstanding what the applicant will say, it has the outcome of their discussions with the DOT, if for whatever reason that roadway is widened, the sign is designed in a way that they can realign the sign head on the steel pole to accommodate for that and maintain the 6-foot setback to the right of way.
I have a question, Chairman. In your testimony, you said that 3-foot panel on the bottom. That's on that. Do you have the DOT permit number?
Yes.
So So, I believe what you're saying is that you have to obtain a permit for this sign from the DOT?
Yes, absolutely.
That's right. Our next witness will speak to that as well.
Okay.
So you have contacted the DOT regarding this issue?
Could I answer the?
Personally, I have not.
Okay, all right, we'll get to the
Yeah,
operation.
so our next witness, Dan, I think you sort of eagerly trying to answer that. Our next witness, the CEO of Interstate, will speak to that. They obtained a DOT permit. They've been interfacing with DOT directly, not dynamic on those issues, so you'll hear from Mr. Gerber shortly on that.
You used a term for lighting called nits, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that is? I'm not familiar with that.
It's a measure of brightness. If you can, that's the standard imperial unit. The standard unit is candelas per meter squared. If you look it up, it's just basically the measure of brightness, the output from a source.
Does it relate to foot candle intensity or not really?
Yes, one nit is 3.426 lumens. So not to foot candles, which is a measure of luminance. Nits is an illuminance measure, which is a measure of brightness instead of a measure of lighting at a specific location.
Okay. So one nit is 3.42 lumens?
Yes.
You said,
So Leon,
I think that's all I have for now.
question for
Yeah.
Leon.
does that doesn't calculate, you said that an iPhone is 500 nits?
No. iPhone 14, looking at the stats that you can pull up online, it ranges from 800 to 1200 nits.
So you're saying that if I'm looking at an iPhone, that's 1500 lumens?
Nits. It's
No, you said it was, one nit is 3.5 lumens, right?
right. I did the math, but
So, simple math, that's
If
like
you-
over 2,000 lumens. I mean, that's, I don't know.
I don't know.
That doesn't compute to me.
it's a measure of the light level being output from the source, the screen, where it's measured differently from a light bulb, but light bulbs, they are rated in lumens,
Yeah.
where nits is more from a source. That's,
It seems really bright.
yeah, I see your point, but again, just the whole thing there is 300 is the setting for the nighttime level. So technically, your phone, your HDTV, they have a higher output at night because those are less variable settings anyway. Have a higher setting, so if you're comparing the brightness of your phone at night to the digital screens are at a lower level.
Okay. Just trying to imagine staring at 120 lumen light bulb versus a 1500 lumen. I'm just trying to compare it in my head, so
Yeah.
I understand it.
Please.
Sorry.
Okay. Questions for this witness?
Oh, okay, I just one, with regard to the potential widening and moving the sign back, and I'm sorry, it's hard for me to see from back here, but would the sign then be set back to the same extent as the building?
If it was, no, the current building is 49.9 feet. So
And so where would the V end if you had to push it back?
6 feet further than it is currently. So right now, the end of the sign is pretty much at the corner of the building, so it'd be 6 feet into the building.
Yeah, that's my question.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, all right, so
6 feet back.
wouldn't that be, in your view of the billboard, be obstructed from coming eastbound?
It would certainly reduce the visibility of that lower left-hand corner.
And Liz, our operations witness has
Okay.
reviewed this and can testify shortly to it's a good question.
Okay, all right. I think the only other question I have is there, since it's hard, I think, for all of us to understand brightness, is what you're saying a typical billboard? Like, if we wanted to see, sort of understand, could we look at a typical billboard or, a digital billboard, or is there something that we could?
I'm going to ask you to ask the Interstate Ops guy that, where he may have one elsewhere in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, that's fine. All right,
Questions?
those are my only questions for right now.
Leon, you were.
Yeah, what's the separation between your billboard and the actual building? horizontal separation?
It's about 2 feet at its nearest edge, so the corner of the billboard and the corner of the building.
Is the bottom of the billboard higher than the building?
Yes. There's about 5 foot of clearance.
About 5 feet. Is there any code that regulates that horizontal and vertical separation?
Not that I'm aware of. I've done signs in the past that actually overhang buildings. It's certainly a design criteria, as far as factors of safety and whatnot, but I haven't seen anything where there's a restriction about overhanging.
And you've actually had billboards where the billboard actually overhangs the
Yes.
footprint of the building?
Yes.
That's it for now.
Yes, Mr. Maltz?
Yeah, actually, in my review letter, September 29th, actually comment number 3B for,
Mr. Maltz, hold on, I can't hear you. Can you just speak up a little bit?
okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you said you referred to your September 29,
2023 review letter, and it was comment 3B, which is actually related to a review of Mr. Simoff's traffic letter, but I think it also relates to you. The northwest corner of the adjoining property, which is 1767, and right at the corner of the property where there's that two-way drive that serves this property and the adjoining one, there's a large, tall, and wide billboard, not a digital one, but a billboard. Does it in any way affect the view looking towards west, to the east, looking towards westbound traffic on Route 10? Have you done
I haven't done a study on that.
profile to show, because the roadway on the other side is on a slight downgrade. So even though your height may be higher than the other billboard, you're still looking down at a lower point. And at some point, the billboard may not be visible. So I was just wondering if you've taken a look at that.
We have as a team, and our operator can speak to that shortly.
Okay.
Could you point to the plan at this location that Mr. Maltz is talking about,
Yeah.
just so the board understands?
So, just pulling up the plan. So to the west of the sign, right?
I have a photo of it.
To the east of the sign. To the east. To the east.
It's to the east. It's very close to Route 10.
At the South Road intersection?
Harold, is this on Route 10 east or west?
West. East.
It's on Route 10 east, okay. Is it east of the site?
Yes. There's a common driveway, and it's located right at the entrance turnout to get back onto Route 10 East.
So you call it a billboard, Harold, but it's really the,
Well, I'm saying it's a ground-mounted sign. I mean, of course, it says it's ground-mounted.
Oh, it's a monument sign, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it's about where the borderless
Yep.
site location is. That's where it's a 20-foot monument sign. Correct.
20-foot height at the top.
Yes.
And Harold, is your question, will that monument sign block the visibility of this proposed billboard from Route 10 west?
Yes, that's my question. Yep. Or is it an intermittent structure? Some sort of profile should be shown as to what's going on.
Yeah, it does have some images to share that show a proposed rendering of the sign.
Yeah, we'll address exactly that shortly.
But that has been looked at, and that's something that also was considered when setting the overall height of the 49 feet to afford clearance above that sign.
any other questions from our professionals before we open up the board members?
Yeah,
Questions
thank
for
you.
this witness? Is that a yes, Leanne? Leanne, you good?
I'm good, no.
Any questions for this witness and this testimony from the members of the board?
I do. Is the lighting from the proposed billboard brighter than the advertising for the Harley Davidson lighting
For their sign
would
would
be used? Yeah, like their signage says lighting now. The billboard would be brighter than what's actually on the property, like the Harley Davidson advertising?
I haven't seen the specifics on the lights that they use. I would say it may appear brighter because of just the nature of, it's not a backlit sign, it's the LED nature of it will look brighter. But I'll dig into those specifics and, you know, what kind of lighting they have on their signs.
Will we see any renditions of what it will look like, the sign on the property with the Harley Davidson building in the background and all that?
Yes, absolutely.
Will that be the planner doing that, or?
You'll see a little bit of that from Mr. McDonough, but also Mr. Gerber from Interstate. They prepared their own in-house rendering, so you'll see them from both witnesses.
Any other questions for this one? Saji?
I don't know if this witness or someone else will be talking about position of the pole relative to Route 10 property line and.
That's, I think this, we heard just a
I think
little
that would
here.
be
It's my understanding the pole is set back approximately 35 feet from the Route 10 property line. Is that a typical setback? I'm just thinking about, I've been in other places where unfortunately poles are a little bit too close to the road and accidents and what have you. I just don't know what's the standard is for pole this size and nature from a major thoroughfare.
Yeah, it's about 35 feet setback from the road. I'd say that is typical. In general, this is called the center mount sign, which is the most common sign, so the pole's at the center of the structure. But we also have done numerous applications where it's called a full flag, so it's on either extreme end of the sign. So in that case, in other instances, we've had signs, the pole be 5 feet, 10 feet from the right of way, so 35 feet is certainly common.
And is the location of the pole governed in part by avoiding circulation disruption on the site, vehicular circulation?
Yes, absolutely. So, sorry, I didn't mention it prior, but there are no changes to the overall site, no reduction in parking, no changes to the building, no changes to access. We're dropping that pole in an existing landscape area, which otherwise is not used except for the landscaping. So yes, it's located in a way that does not hinder, you know, the existing operations of the site.
Does your civil engineering have any provision for emergency generator, or is this sort of normal power?
This is just a normal power, no generator.
Does your civil engineering design allow for future installation of cell phone antennas?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Well, it's your design. So,
The structure hasn't been designed in a building permit way, but yes, that's not part of the application.
any other questions from members of the board?
Yeah, is there any regulations for wide loads going down Route 10 that you would have to abide by? I mean, if it's 6 feet from the edge of the road, if you're moving a very large structure down Route 10, like some sort of unusual circumstances, do they have any regulations for that?
Our traffic engineer will testify more on that, but the sign face itself is 6 feet, but the pole is again 35 feet,
Okay.
thereabouts.
So I guess 49 feet up probably wouldn't be.
Yeah, it should be outside. And it's all on the other side of existing utilities and all that, so I would anticipate it being not an issue.
One other question, I'm sorry. On your plan, you show the electrical feed for this coming off that utility pole, just behind the curve along Route 10?
Yes, correct.
That will be completely underground, is that correct?
That can be, yes.
It can be or will be?
Will be.
Any questions for this witness from members of the public?
I'm sorry, one more question. I know you haven't designed the base yet for the billboard yet, correct?
Correct.
But you're confident that will fit within that landscaped island? You know that for a fact, that you want to remove curb or pavement?
A typical caisson footing would fit where it's located currently. If anything were to be different, we would certainly, work that with the professionals and yourself to make sure anything that gets disturbed would be returned to its current state.
So you don't know that?
It's not designed, so I can't speak to it, but I know that the typical foundation would fit in that landscape area.
What's a typical foundation?
Caisson footing, so concrete steel cage. Usually they're 1 to 2 feet wider than the steel column itself. So given the location of the sign support and the clearance to the curb that's there, pretty confident that it won't require any additional improvements, but if, once we get into that point, we can confirm it.
Typically, the foundation holes are 25, 30 feet deep.
It depends, but that's pretty common.
And you have, and I'll open it back up to the members of the public in a moment, you have the SMC MUA letter dated September 12th, 2023 that talks about their 8-inch water main.
Yes, correct.
I know you haven't designed the foundation yet, but any preliminary concerns regarding the 37.5 feet?
No, given the water lines located within the right of way and the pole that we're proposing is 35 feet back from the right of way, I think that's enough, sufficient clearance. So yeah, we don't have any concerns there.
Now, any questions from members of the public for this witness and this testimony? Come on up, please, introduce yourself. I'm sorry, state your name and address for the record once you get to the microphone.
Rich West, 10 Corson Way, Morris Plains, West, WST. You mentioned that the corner of the billboard to the building is 2 to 5 feet.
Yes.
So if the building catches fire, would the billboard catch fire or get severely damaged?
Tough to say without knowing the specifics.
That goes in.
All right, we'll just please step down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, time permitted, Mr. Chairman, we'd like to go to our second witness. We think we'll conclude there, but we think the operations will be a nice bookend for the evening on the civil testimony. So we'll call Jeffrey Gerber. He's the COO and President of Business Development for Interstate. Mr. Gerber will walk you through his background, which is extensive in his field, how they locate the site, the DOT permitting process, which involves a lot of safety protocols and reviews, as well as what you're going to see here by way of this board.
Hi, Mr. Gerber, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
It's Jeffrey Gerber, Gerber, address 905 North Kings Highway, Sherry Hill, New Jersey.
Jeff, you heard my conference with the board about your affiliation with the applicant entity, but just for the record, your affiliation with Interstate Outdoor?
Yeah, I am the Chief Operating Officer and President of Business Development for Interstate Outdoor Advertising. I've held that position since January of 2001. Prior to that, I was a partner at the law firm of Pressler, Amy & Ross in Morristown, New Jersey. Joined that firm in 1991. Before that, I was a Deputy Attorney General of New Jersey, and I was counsel to the New Jersey Department of Transportation. In particular, I was assigned to the outdoor advertising section in the New Jersey Department of Transportation. The outdoor advertising section regulates all outdoor advertising signs in the state. My responsibilities included enforcement of the New Jersey Department of Transportation's outdoor advertising regulations. I promulgated regulations for the department, oversaw the permitting process, and ensured that the department complied with the Highway Beautification Act, which tied 10% of the department's annual funding from the federal government, which if they did not comply, they would lose 10% of the federal funding. I have basically over 35 years of experience in the outdoor advertising arena. I've been involved in over 250 sign applications, not only in New Jersey, but in Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Florida, and California. And our company, I think, might be helpful for the board just to get a little background of our company. Our company is, as they said, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's our home base. We have offices in Jersey City and in Atlantic City. We have over 1,700 displays. Most of them are in New Jersey and in Eastern Pennsylvania, but also in New York and the states I mentioned to you previously. I've been involved in numerous sign applications involving both static and digital signs. Our company was involved in one of the largest municipal digital sign programs in the country. I believe it is the largest. It's in Chicago. We built 60 digital signs on municipal property, city of Chicago property. along major routes and city streets as an important part of a funding program for the city of Chicago, as well as also providing a public messaging platform for the city. So that's all about that.
Very good. So, we're here in Morris Plains for this particular property, the Harley Davidson dealership. Can you tell us a little bit about how Interstate in your office locates a site and what process you tend to go through with other agencies before we make our way into a room like this?
Sure. There's a number of factors that that come into play when selecting a site for an outdoor advertising sign. First of all, you look for a major transportation corridor. Route 10 fits that bill. It's a major transportation corridor in North Jersey. You look for a location that is in a commercial or industrial zone. That is necessary because without that you cannot get a permit from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. They will only issue state outdoor advertising permits for signs in commercial or industrial zones. You also look, and this is just a practical matter, it's not a legal requirement, but it's just a practical matter, you look to make sure that the sign that you're going to install is not going to shine into anybody's bedroom or living room or home. In other words, it doesn't impact a residential property. And so in evaluating those factors and our sales department receiving requests for signs in this area, we looked at Route 10 and selected this location. We had looked at another location earlier, a number of years ago, in Morris Plains at a gas station, but it was very close to an intersection. There was different striping back then in terms of the road, and there was concern that there was a traffic safety issue, and we never pursued that because of the concerns that were expressed then. We then came back and looked at this site, saw it was further from the intersection, saw that there had been some revised striping of Route 10, and based upon our traffic expert looking at it, felt that there was no traffic safety concerns on it, so we then pursued and filed the application for this location.
And the parallel, if not precursor process with DOT involves what?
Yeah, before we even made application to Morris Plains, we applied to the New Jersey Department of Transportation to make sure we could get a state permit. Because without that, there's no point in coming before the zoning board or any board for that matter, because you cannot operate a sign in New Jersey without a state permit. And so how it works is, and it's worked since I was there, is when you file an application with the department, it triggers action by the department. They send inspectors out to the site. They look at the location, and in this case, on a non-limited access roadway, such as Route 10, they're going to look to first see what the zoning is. We're in a business complex zone, building zone, commercial. We check the box. They're going to look to see if we are spaced properly from any other, in this case, because we have a digital sign application, are we within 3,000 feet on either side of that sign, on that same side of the road? Is there another digital sign or a digital sign permit without the sign being built along that section of Route 10? There was not. Are we more than 800 feet away from a variable message sign that the department operates, those signs that you see along the road that will tell you about an accident ahead or other pertinent information, and we're more than 800 feet away from that. There is a variable message sign on the north side of 10 in Parsippany, but we are more than 800 feet away from that. And the department also will look at the location to determine if they have any safety concerns. If there's a safety concern, they will deny the application. We have had that happen on a few occasions, and as per their regulations, they will deny your application if it is unsafe. So we met all of those requirements and obtained a permit from the New Jersey Department of Transportation for this location.
And part of those discussions, and you heard the question before by Leon as raised in his report, the right of reservation by the DOT
is that reviewed at the time of the DOT permitting process?
That's not reviewed by the outdoor advertising section, and I think there was a little miscommunication before. We did not reach out to DOT on that issue. We agree that it's an important issue, and what we're proposing to do is to design the sign so that if and when Route 10 is widened, we'll be able to slide that sign 6 feet to the south, so it won't be within the reservation area and won't impact any future widening of the department. Didn't think, since we were willing to do that there was a need to contact the department. If the board feels that it would still like us to discuss that with the department, of course we would, but since we're moving in the future, will be as a condition of our approval to move the sign out of that reservation area. I didn't think there was a need to contact it.
So if we slid the billboard face, are there any regulatory preclusions you're aware of where the board cannot be located over another principal structure?
No, there's no governmental restrictions. We have actually built signs over buildings. We have built signs through the middle of buildings. We recently built a sign in Jersey City near the Pulaski Skyway. We built it right through the middle of a training facility building. Built the sign right through the roof of the building. And we also built one in Bogota on Route 80 through the old Prince Anne Theater in Bogota. There's a double-sided digital sign right through the roof of the building that we built in top.
And before we start getting into discussions as to what the sign itself will look like, while we're still talking about orientation and location, if you're approaching west and you're looking at the sign across Route 10, there was a question as to whether or not there might be an obscuring of the view of the sign relative to the monument sign to our east.
Yeah, that kind of gets into a whole discussion of, why is the sign at 49 feet? And so let me start, and hopefully we'll run out of time here, but let me start by explaining how we got to the 49 feet. And I think it'd be helpful for the board to understand that we don't want to build a sign any higher than we need to maintain commercially viable visibility to motorists. That's what the sign is designed to do. Any higher than that is just a lot of expense of steel and foundation that we would prefer to avoid, and the way costs have gone up in the last 3 or 4 years, we're even more incentivized to do that. So how do we figure out what is that commercially viable height? We have a device that's called a pole lock, and it locks at various elevations, and it's a flag on top, and we put it to the bottom of the sign, which in this case, the bottom of the sign would be 32 feet. The overall height of the sign is 49 feet. You have a 14-foot high digital face. You have a 3-foot apron. The 17 minus the 49 gets you to the 32 foot. So we put the flag at the bottom and at the back of the sign, where the back of the sign would be, at the back, at the 48-foot back from the front of the sign, and we ride up and down the road, both in east and westerly directions, to see where that flag is. Can we see that flag without being obstructed by the building? Can we see the back of that? Can we see that flag without it being obstructed by the on-premise sign that's to the east of the property on the same side of Route 10? And we didn't start out at 32. We get all different heights until we got to at 32 feet. We have the ability to have the sign completely visible as well as the apron. And I'll go through some of the exhibits. I'm not going to have time today. We can go through it probably next time we're here. But Mr. Hall, we got the request about moving the sign back 6 feet. We went back out to the site to see what would it look like 6 feet further back, because we wanted to make sure we could comply with this reservation if and when it happened. And it turns out that what happens is that the 3 feet just, it starts to really block the back of the apron, if you will, which would require us to put the permit number on the front part of the sign, front part of the apron. So we learned that really we are at that height. If we go any lower, we have to move it back. The sign face is going to be impacted at that 6 foot. If we keep it where it is, we have the apron intact, and we'd be fine. And I can go through the exhibits and show the pictures and show. I think we're going to run out of time. I think there's going to be questions, and I think I don't want it to get confused, but I think we can go through that at the next.
And you'll be coming back the next
Right,
week.
right.
So, with that, Mr., we can continue to talk about what you would see on the sign, what you won't see on the sign, how the flips work, or at this point, would you like to stop for some limited cross? We know we're coming back anyway, Mr. Gerber. We know Mr. Duarte's coming back again, as well as our two
Your call,
witnesses.
what I'd like to do is avoid presentation of exhibits tonight, because then I think it really lengthens it, but if you have a few minutes to go over.
Let's talk about the operation of the digital sign, how it actually operates from a, and by the way, I know that there are no digital billboards in Morris Plains. I can tell you that the digital sign that we're proposing here is probably the most common digital sign, not only in New Jersey, but probably in the country. The manufacturer of the sign is Watchfire. They manufacture all of our signs, including the 60 that we did in Chicago. And the digital sign operates on what we call an 8-second turn. Every 8 seconds, the message changes, and there's a series of 8 messages. So we call it a 64-second digital minute. There's 8 messages, and then it starts again. Each 8-second slot is held by a different advertiser or for a public service message, or what have you. And per NJDOT regulations, that message must change in less than a second, which this does. It must not flash. This does not flash. It must not have any motion. It does not have any motion. What it really is, everyone, is really it's a modern method of copy change in the country without the use of vinyl, which is the old-fashioned static sign that you see with the lights on it. It's got that plastic vinyl and the halogen light bulbs pointed out up at the sign. And every time that someone wants to change their message, you have to go up, take that copy down, dispose of that vinyl. This gets rid of all of that waste and provides them a very modern way of changing copy. And it also creates something that has been a benefit, and we'll get to the examples next week, or next time, not next week, but next time we get together, of the use of the digital sign for municipalities. We guarantee, as part of our application, that the municipality gets one digital spot every other digital minute is guaranteed for public service messaging, and we'll give you examples of, like in Oakland, New Jersey, we built a sign on 287, and they were using that sign for in 2020. When kids were graduating from high school and they couldn't celebrate their graduation because of COVID, they used our digital board to celebrate the graduation. We did a sign in Hazlet, New Jersey on Route 35 where they used the sign to promote, they had a public pool. They wanted to get their membership up. It was a municipal pool. They put it up in 2 weeks. The pool sold out by using that sign. Hazlet also used it because they've been trying to increase their ranks to fire and police. They used it for that. How it works is our art department, who designs copy for advertisers all around the country, uses those same services for the municipality to be able to design the copy. It's at no cost. And basically, it's a tool that is infinite in my view, and really municipalities can really take full advantage of it, and it can be very effective. There's a separate component, and that is the emergency messaging component. If there is an emergency, for example, let's say there's a traffic alert, there's ice on Route 10, or there's an accident, or there's an Amber Alert, there's been an abduction, we designed a template that has, in this case, if we were approved in Morris Plains, it would say Borough Morris Plains, weather alert, and then there's a blank box there that we would fill in when we have two people who are available 24/7 to be contacted, to type in whatever the message is. Weather alert, there's a hurricane coming. Weather alert, there's a snowstorm coming. And that emergency message overrides all of the other commercial messaging. How do we do that? All the contracts that we have with our advertisers, we only guarantee 90%. We reserve the 10% for situations just like that. So we don't breach our contract with our advertisers, and we're able to provide the emergency messaging. And one last thing, 'cause I know we're getting close to 10:30. One of the things we do with respect to copy content, when we make applications before boards, we ask that there be copy content restrictions placed on the sign, meaning no gentlemen clubs, no pornographic copy, some towns have asked us, have mentioned to us no cannabis, but we make the request as a condition of our approval, and that way it's not a First Amendment issue of control. We're saying we want this on our sign as a condition of our approval, and it's been pretty effective, it's been successful, no one's ever successfully challenged that. I think
That's good stuff right now.
So we're gonna open it up to limited cross-examination. What do you mean by limited? It's to information presented this evening, not what might be presented in the next meeting. So we'll start with our professionals. Liz?
Okay, so I think I'm just gonna repeat the similar question that I asked earlier, which is can you give us a comparable sign that perhaps you've done of size and brightness and roadway width?
I can give you, I would say, maybe I'll give you a number of them, different. I mean, Route 80 in Pagoda, just down the road, it would be one. Route 46 in Richfield, it would be a very similar, it's a double-sided digital. It overhangs, or very close to overhanging an industrial building. It's on the south side of 46 as you go over, of course there's a bridge there. As you get into Richfield, that would be a pretty similar one. Route 35 in Hazlitt would be one. We have digital signs in Lawrence Township, Route 1. That would be a similar one. Route 130 in Pennsauken. Trying to think of some other roadways.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a favor? Can you maybe send the secretary, or through your attorney, send the secretary a list of the street addresses on this in the next week or so, and
Absolutely.
the secretary will distribute it to us.
We'll get a list of all, and I can tell you that not only interstate signs, but most of the other digital signs that you see on the road, when you drive on the New Jersey Turnpike, you're going to see the 14x40 digitals. They're all operate on that same pattern of 8 seconds, and no flashing, no motion, because they're all permitted by the New Jersey Department of Transportation. You're not allowed to. But I'll provide a nice detailed list. I'll try to find things as close as I can so board members don't have to travel too far away. But I'm thinking you want to see signs that are on roads similar to Route 10 of the similar size. Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
And I would say similar height, if possible as well, because you mentioned the heights vary, right?
Yeah, but 49 feet is kind of like, that is kind of a very common height, but they do vary because there's some times where they have to be much higher because they're on roads where the property is sub-elevated in relation to the road. There's sometimes where they're lower because there's just nothing there. You can build it lower, but we do try to build it as low as we possibly can. But I'll try to find similar height, similar size, so you can get a good feel for how it looks. But I'm sure you probably don't realize it, but you've probably driven by these signs many times because they really started coming out in 2012, and now they're pretty much all over. But I'll get the list.
Thank you. Liz, any other questions?
They can probably all wait, until next time.
Yeah?
When you investigate a location for a billboard, there's a Sonesta Suites Hotel directly behind you. Was that considered?
Well, in the terms of impact, it's behind the sign, so no one's going to see the advertising copy on that sign. They won't see the light from the sign. It will not impact the hotel.
Now, you mentioned you went through the DOT permitting process, and you have that permit?
Yeah, I'll produce the permit, correct. We'll produce that.
Now, when you went through that permitting process, did either you or your professionals make DOT aware of this issue of the sign projecting into that land reservation?
Did not know about the issue until we received your report.
Okay.
And so, as well, long after we had the permit, But again, if need be, we'll go to the DOT. I mean, we're willing to agree as a condition of approval, we'll just move it back without, no questions asked, if there is a widening. Not gonna seek any type of condemnation proceeds from the department, not gonna challenge it, we would simply just move it back on our own expense.
I guess my concern is this, that we've been trying to get Route 10 wide for 20 to 25 years, and as you know, things like this take forever. We're in a conceptual design at this point with the DOT. So I guess my concern is if and when DOT becomes aware of this billboard, that we get dropped to the back burner and we lose another 5 or 10 years. So I guess I'm thinking out loud now, does it make sense for me to reach out to my DOT contact who is trying to advance this project and say, listen, I've got this application, does this jeopardize what we're trying to get accomplished here?
Well, I think the question should be, does it jeopardize if the applicant is committing as a condition of his approval that when the widening comes, we will move the sign back immediately, or we would lose our right to be there? That's to be the question, not, because we're agreeing right now, that happens, we'll move the sign. We're gonna design the sign with the proper foundation to handle, because when you go to a full flag, you have to have a little different of a foundation because of the stresses. It'll be ready to handle that. And it's inexpensive to do it now compared to trying to retrofit it later, so we would do it now.
Yeah. I guess I'm still a little bit uncomfortable with the scenario. Again, hope for the best, plan for the worst. That at some point in time, prior to you constructing the sign, the DOT becomes aware of this proposal the way it is on the plans today, and we get dropped.
But why, so you're musing out loud, as am I, why wouldn't you contact DOT with this explicit affirmation that it would be moved when need be? Like you're the expert, but I don't, is there a downside?
Again, we've been trying for 20 to 25 years. I just want to avoid the scenario by which, prior to construction, the DOT becomes aware of this, and even though it can be moved back, the little red flag goes up the DOT, and we lose another 5 years.
Mr. Hall, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but who are you dealing with at DOT? Because I know a lot of people there.
I tell you what, I'll get your attorney's name off the top of my head. I don't remember. I haven't spoken to him in almost a year. But
is it Victor Akku? Is that the person?
No, it's not Victor.
Okay. Because I know a ton of people there, and
yeah, maybe you have contacts you can reach out and speak.
I may be able to help you get it widened.
If you could do that. We've got all sorts of politicians attend meetings. Nothing seems to work.
We had any other questions? Unlimited cross?
No, not this time.
Questions from board members?
Yeah, I have
regarding the information we heard
I
today?
have something. You'd mentioned the municipal spots on the board. 8 seconds every
Every other digital minute, so yes.
128 seconds.
I misspoke because not only would you have that, but you'd also have any vacant time. Many times of the year, we don't have all 8 spots sold. Sometimes we have short periods where all 8 are. But the likelihood is you'd probably have at least one 8-second spot every minute is the likelihood. But I just don't want to promise something that I can't deliver.
Minimum would be every
minimum every minute,
128
correct.
seconds.
And more than likely, you'd have at least one every cycle. There'd be times where you would have 2 and 3 if you want to use them.
Is that forever?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing I had, you mentioned a list of certain things you wouldn't allow advertising about. Do you have a list of the things that you would not allow?
Yes.
Could you provide that?
I'll provide to the board attorney a list of and typical things we've agreed to in the past.
Yeah.
And
I'm more concerned about the things that you wouldn't allow on there. That's what I'd like to see.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Will there be renderings of the approach on Route 10? So as you're coming around Route 10 there, like we'll see it?
We have the exhibits. I thought we were going
Just
to
wanted to make sure.
upload through the time, so we have renderings showing both east and westbound, as well as the additional polling we did as a result of the 6-foot setback, and so you can see why the height we need is why we need it, and why we don't block that on-premise sign to the east.
Thank you.
One follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
You have a lease agreement, obviously, with the property owner,
Correct.
and at some point in time, that lease agreement is going to expire unless you can extend it, correct?
Yeah, it's a 20-year lease.
20-year lease. And what happens at the end of the 20-year lease if there's not an extension?
Typically, they get renewed. I've never had one not get renewed. I have had, I've been with the company for over 20 years. There were leases before I came, but we've never had one not renewed.
So it's 20 years and beyond.
Yes.
Any questions from board members? Questions from members of the public regarding the testimony that we heard tonight? Okay, witness can sit down. Thank you, and
Thank you.
next meeting.
Mr. Kelly, let's talk about what the next meeting is, and we'll need an extension of time for the board to act also. When is our next meeting?
November 27th.
11/27, work for you. You good, Jeff?
I will make myself available.
It's the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Well, it's not the Michigan-Ohio State game. I'll be Penn State? What?
You good now?
27th, November 27th?
I think we're all good, Mr. Chairman.
And we'll get that extension of time, Mr. Kelly?
Certainly.
Mr. Chairman,
Want to end of the year, Mike? We're end of the year?
Yeah.
Make it easy.
So the applicant's getting an extension of time for the board to act through December 31, 2023, correct? Thank you. That was a yes, right, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir.
Ian, you had a question?
Does the board want to see revised proposed lighting plan?
I thought that was coming anyway, based on what we heard from the engineer.
I just wanted to be crystal clear, everyone. in the room.
It's coming, it's gonna be provided.
I'm sorry.
It will be provided.
Mr. Kelly, are you going to ask us to carry this with no need for additional notice?
I sure am, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a motion from a member of the board to carry this application to the November 2023 regular meeting? No need for additional notice.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Karen, roll call for the right number of people, please.
Okay, Mr. President, you will be voting on this.
I'll second.
Who second is?
Bobby.
Okay, Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Cortez? Yes. Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Mr. Metzger?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes. The matter is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We still have board business, guys. Just, thank you, ladies. Just a few minutes. New business. Any new business? Old business. We do have an ad hoc committee formed. Mr. Webster and Mr. McCabe and Liz and I met to discuss the simplification of the residential non-fee variance applications, and we hope to have something to present to the board by the end of the calendar year. Any other old business? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye.